Refugees are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, children with the same hopes and ambitions as us, except that a twist of fate has bound their lives to a global refugee crisis on an unprecedented scale. Khalid Hosseini. The photos along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border are overwhelming, as is the news coming out of the region. On October 3rd, the Pakistan government issued an order that undocumented persons in the country, over 1.7 million people, mainly of Afghan origin, were to leave the country. They were given until November 1st to leave voluntarily, and after that, deportations would occur. This news was spread via loudspeaker broadcasts through mosques throughout the refugee camps and in particular neighborhoods. As of now, November 7th, detention centers have opened across Pakistan. The decision has come under intense fire across the world. Many of these refugees have been living in Pakistan since they were children, or they were born in Pakistan. They began streaming across the border after the Soviet invasion, and continual upheaval has only increased their numbers. A not insignificant number of those under threat of deportation are in a very real danger. Women who agitated against the Taliban edicts banning female education and work. Men who worked for Western governments. Authors, artists, and many others. Heartbreaking videos of mud brick homes being bulldozed to force families out have surfaced on social media. But, too, the Pakistani position that the Afghan refugees are a security risk is a real discussion. 14 of 24 major terror attacks in Pakistan involved Afghan nationals, although Western nations have denied that there is evidence any refugees have been involved. Whatever the truth is, it's a belief firmly held in Pakistan and so a part of any discussion of the matter. History is rife with refugee crises and expulsions. Humans have fled danger and have been kicked out of nations for as long as humankind has existed. In fact, if we're looking for an example of mass expulsion of humans from a particular nation, the 20th century itself provides a multitude of examples, including one which resulted in the eponymous travel bag so popular throughout Africa. Ghana must go. On January 17, 1983, the government of Nigeria demanded that all Ghanaians residing in the country leave. If they don't leave, they should be arrested and tried and sent back to their homes. Illegal immigrants under normal circumstances should not be given any notice whatsoever, were the explanatory words of the Nigerian president, Shehu Shagari. A deadline of 31st January was given for the nearly 2 million people, more than half of them Ghanaian, to leave. The decision of the Nigerian government didn't happen in a vacuum. Not even 2 decades earlier, Nigerians living in Ghana had been expelled abruptly as well. It was a move that had come 3 years after the ouster of noted Pan-Africanist Kwame Nkrumah, and was a visible repudiation of any of his legacy that remained. Native Ghanaians complained that Nigerian merchants had moved into their towns and were driving them out of business. The argument in Nigeria in 1983 ran along those same lines. Ghana had experienced a collapse in the cocoa market, causing their economy to tumble, while Nigeria's was experiencing an oil boom. As a result, Ghanaians had moved to Nigeria to perform menial labor in large numbers. But what goes up often comes down. And in the 1980s, an oil bust smashed into the Nigerian economy with all the force of a Category 5 hurricane. Whereas Nigerian recruiters had previously appeared in Ghana, to attract workers to do jobs Nigerians no longer wanted to do now that they had oil wealth. Now these same workers were accused of stealing jobs from Nigerians. The government faced further instability in a series of riots that started in the city of Kano in 1980. Muhammad Marwa was a self-proclaimed prophet who had been born in Cameroon. He began amassing followers, largely amongst the unemployed, and seizing land where he built shanty-like living quarters for them. These followers were known as the Yatatsine. Marwa was well known for losing his temper and swearing at people, as well as his more interesting proclamations, such as his declaration that anyone who rode a bicycle or motorcycle was a pagan. A letter from the government of Kano ordering Marwa and his followers to vacate land they had appropriated was the spark that started massive riots. More than 5,000 were killed, including Marwa himself. But the end of the riots in Kano wasn't the end of the religious unrest. Although subsequent investigations showed that foreigners had not been any impetus or driving force behind the riots, the Nigerian public and government believed otherwise. This issue came to a head with the armed robbery of the Vice President Alexander Ekwueme at his home. 2 of the assailants were of Ghanaian origin, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back. No one from Ghana was wanted in Nigeria any longer. Leaving Nigeria wasn't as simple as it sounded to those with the luxury of staying. In order to get to Ghana, one had to exit Nigeria, go through Benin and Togo, and then enter Ghana. The border crossings were completely swarmed. A roiling sea of humanity walked and stuffed into rickety lorries and other contraptions that could often only loosely be called vehicles. Poisonous fumes created a smog. Human waste was everywhere. And people desperately tried to gather the funds needed to complete the journey of the overtaxed road system. And then the government of Ghana closed its land borders. Fearing the refugee crisis that would develop as Ghana refused entry to its own citizens, Togo then closed their borders. Ghanaian citizens were left in filthy camps without any supplies or cover in Benin. They huddled in Cotonou, hoping for ships that would take them over the sea to Ghana. International aid organizations jumped to help, but disease and violence still spread, seemingly at the speed of light. Finally, Ghana reopened its borders and attempted to take some of the load off the overtaxed roads by sending ships to Cotonou. Even this wasn't an end to the nightmare, as desperate Ghanaians struggled to get on board, resulting in many falling into the sea and drowning. Although the Nigerian government had ordered the expulsion of the Ghanaians to shore up their popularity in a looming election, it proved short-lived benefit. Less than a year later, President Shehu Shagari was overthrown and arrested by Muhammadu Buhari in December 1983. The expulsion policy wasn't abandoned, however. Another 700,000 foreigners were expelled in 1985 under Buhari. And this was followed by the overthrow of Buhari by Ibrahim Babangida. Although Buhari was elected president again in 2015, this time legally. There was a tremendous outcry against the expulsions at the time, with the United Nations and the United States both condemning Nigeria's actions. Pope John Paul II released a statement saying, "A grave, incredible drama producing the largest single and worst human exodus in the 20th century." The expulsions were even condemned by the head of the South African apartheid government, P.W. Botha, who compared Shagari to Hitler. 40 years after Ghana Must Go, Nigeria has yet to apologize. On the other hand, Ghana has not apologized for its own expulsion of Nigerians in 1969. And the expulsions continue on a scale both enormous in Pakistan and small in the recent expulsions of Burkinabe from Ghana. We've only barely touched the surface of Ghana Must Go, African history, and the refugee crisis in Pakistan and history in general. There's so much more to read and learn, and we encourage you to use this History She Wrote episode as a jumping off point to dig deeper into all of these subjects. Until next time, please read more, go back further, and for goodness sake, make sure you can find these places on a map.